is worth at this point.
Yeah, so Joe, I am a big proponent of the U.S. taking the worldwide lead in crypto. I think we have to bring it onshore and they use our best practices and regulation. I think that the Bitcoin reserve, before you can accumulate it, you have to stop selling it.
Most investors are glued to charts and crypto drama. The real digital reset is unfolding quietly at the highest institutional level. This time, it's not just the BIS, IMF, or central banks. It's the United Nations itself. And they just took a bold step, formally backing a framework that will reshape the global financial system. What's at the center of that reset? Digital currencies, blockchain interoperability, and programmable money. And if you hold XRP or XLM, you need to understand this moment clearly, because Ripple and Stellar are already embedded in the pipes of this new infrastructure. This video is not hype. It's not speculation. It's confirmation from the UN, from its agencies, and from its partners. Subscribe to Be Crypto Smart, because when institutions move silently, we decode it in public. Let's start with the facts. In 2024, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, made one of the most underreported yet massively important declarations in the history of digital finance. They didn't release a theory. They published an operational blueprint, a full-scale roadmap detailing how countries, especially those in the global south, can bypass outdated financial infrastructure and plug directly into a next-generation global value grid. It's called Digital Public Infrastructure, DPI, and it includes digital ID frameworks, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, cross-border blockchain payments, programmable aid disbursement systems. This isn't a wish list. It's a deployment guide backed by multilateral funding, real-time use cases, and system-wide cooperation. And the goal is crystal clear: build an interoperable, inclusive, and programmable financial layer that works across borders, agencies, and sectors, regardless of how developed a country's current system is. But the UN isn't doing this alone. They're not reinventing the wheel. Instead, they're aligning with the very institutions that have already laid the groundwork: the IMF and World Bank to provide monetary policy alignment and regulatory frameworks, the BIS Innovation Hub to shape the technology behind cross-border CBDCs and payment rails, Stellar Development Foundation, already operating humanitarian corridors and blockchain-based aid disbursement networks with UN agencies, Ripple, strategically positioned through indirect but powerful partnerships, including with UNHCR, Mercy Corps, and other NGOs actively piloting blockchain-based financial relief solutions. This isn't about experimenting with crypto. This is about embedding digital rails permanently into the global financial infrastructure. And when you zoom in, the UN's digital cooperation roadmap is explicit. Blockchain is the connective layer. The rails for identity, payments, compliance, and liquidity aren't optional. They are foundational. That's why Stellar and Ripple are in the room. Not because of hype, but because they've already built working solutions for the problems the UN is trying to solve. XRP and XLM are not side projects here. They are already running the corridors that this new digital financial system will be built on. They are fast, compliant, scalable, already tested under real-world stress. This is no longer about crypto adoption. This is about global system convergence. And if you're holding XRP or XLM, you're not just early to the trend. You're already sitting on top of the monetary plumbing that the United Nations, IMF, BIS, and World Bank are actively deploying. They're not speculating on whether blockchain will win. They've already picked their rails. And guess what? You're holding them. Stellar and the UNHCR. Live deployment of digital aid. Now let's get into the real-world proof. While most people are still arguing about charts, Stellar has been quietly executing one of the most impressive humanitarian blockchain deployments in history, in full coordination with the United Nations. It's called Stellar Aid Assist, and it's not theory. It's a fully live program in direct partnership with the UNHCR, delivering real money to real people using blockchain tech that actually works. This isn't some DeFi experiment. This is global-scale aid distribution, targeting refugees in war zones and disaster regions like Ukraine, Kenya, Colombia, and other vulnerable regions where traditional banking simply doesn't work. So what's different about this? Traditional aid takes days, even weeks, to reach the people who need it. It goes through banks, correspondent networks, intermediaries, currency conversions, and bureaucracies. But Stellar's system cuts all of that out. Here's how. Recipients get instant access to a digital wallet. No bank account required. Aid is delivered in USDC on the Stellar blockchain, a fast, transparent, and tamper-proof stablecoin. Beneficiaries can cash out instantly in local currency through MoneyGram. Stellar integrated on off-ramps, already live in over 180 countries. That's not just faster, that's a complete reinvention of how aid works. And here's the key. The system is fully compliant. The UNHCR oversees the identity verification and disbursement process. Stellar handles the rails. MoneyGram handles the fiat exits. It's secure, it's scalable, it's auditable, it's trackable, and it's live. This isn't a sandbox pilot. This is digital cash assistance at scale, already deployed in multiple geographies, solving problems that legacy financial systems could never fix. What does this prove? Stellar's blockchain tech is trusted by the United Nations. The infrastructure is battle-tested under real humanitarian conditions. The model is scalable to millions of unbanked individuals globally. The Stellar is powering the UN's emergency financial systems now. Imagine what happens when these corridors get plugged into the G20's global digital public infrastructure roadmap. Imagine when the same pipes used for aid disbursement become the default rails for CBDCs, international remittances, and government payments. That's not speculation. That's inevitability. Because in this game, the best tech gets picked first. And Stellar's already running the ball with the UN cheering it on. Ripple, Mercy Corps, and tokenized aid corridors. While Stellar is out front powering live corridors, Ripple is quietly building the next layer, the programmable backend of humanitarian finance. And one of its most strategic partners? Mercy Corps. This isn't just any NGO. Mercy Corps has consultative status with the United Nations, meaning it directly contributes to UN policy and deployment efforts. And right now, Mercy Corps is building and testing tokenized aid corridors, using Ripple's blockchain infrastructure as the foundation. In 2023, Ripple expanded its real-world commitment by allocating over $25 million toward Ripple Impact, a philanthropic and development arm specifically targeting scalable blockchain-based financial solutions. Mercy Corps was a key beneficiary and collaborator in that mission. So what's actually being built here? Disaster response infrastructure powered by XRPL, capable of sending programmable cash assistance in real time. Mobile-first payment tools for underserved communities in Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa, where traditional financial infrastructure is lacking or broken. Tokenized stablecoin-based aid platforms, compliant, instant, and fully traceable, built to work seamlessly with public sector actors and NGO logistics. This means Ripple's tech, especially the XRP ledger, is being used to test and scale aid delivery pipelines that mirror the same goals as Stellar's corridors. But with Ripple, it's even more focused on liquidity access, compliance, and programmable automation. In other words, this is infrastructure, not just rails. And here's the kicker. Mercy Corps isn't just another NGO. It's a connector. It sits at the intersection of UN agencies like the World Food Programme, national central banks, local NGOs, and fintechs. So when Mercy Corps deploys a solution using Ripple's infrastructure, it isn't isolated. It's plugged directly into the broader UNDP network. Ripple doesn't need to win every CBDC contract. It just needs to be the protocol that already fits the institutional puzzle. And right now, it does. Ripple's quiet work with Mercy Corps proves one thing. XRP is already being positioned as the liquidity layer for compliant, transparent, high-volume aid finance. And in a world that's rapidly moving toward digitized, programmable value, that's exactly where you want to be positioned. Why XRP and XLM holders need to pay attention now? Most retail investors still think crypto moves with tweets, but that's not how this game works. The institutions have already made their picks. They've spent years laying down rails, building corridors, testing compliance, and fine-tuning liquidity systems. And now, those systems are flipping live, one region, one program, one agency at a time. Here's what's happening right now. Stellar is live with the UN, dispersing digital aid across multiple nations. Ripple's XRPL is being used by Mercy Corps to scale humanitarian finance tools. CBDC pilots around the world are aligning with the same ISO 20022 compliant architecture that XRP and XLM are built for. This is no longer about potential, it's about deployment. The DPI agenda is not speculation. It's UN-backed policy supported by the IMF, the World Bank, and the BIS. And both XRP and XLM are already functioning inside these corridors. Which brings us to the biggest point most retail holders miss. Infrastructure moves in silence until it flips the entire system. By the time the market catches up, these rails will already be running trillions in value. And at that point, you won't get a pump. You'll get a repricing event, sharp, sudden, and irreversible. Because once utility-based liquidity becomes mandatory, there's no pulling it back. Governments, banks, and NGOs don't switch off infrastructure once it's on. They scale it. So if you're holding XRP or XLM today, understand what that really means. You're not betting on a bull run. You're front-running a global financial reset. You're not chasing hype. You're sitting on pre-integrated liquidity tools already embedded in the next-gen financial stack. You're not hoping for adoption. You're holding adoption. Don't sleep on this. The corridor is already open. The system is already live. And the demand? It hasn't even started yet. What comes next? Unification of global blockchain layers. Now that the rails are live and corridors are active, the next stage is convergence. Watch closely because the signs are already here. More UN agencies are adopting blockchain-based settlement systems for internal operations and global disbursements. Stellar is expanding beyond humanitarian corridors into broader use cases like remittance flows, public pensions, and even infrastructure grants. Ripple is deepening ties with large NGOs, CBDC sandbox ecosystems, and fintech regulatory hubs. We're entering a phase where central banks, humanitarian programs, and public sector agencies no longer operate on separate tracks. They're starting to converge. This is the multi-layer integration phase. And it's exactly what the BIS and IMF envisioned when they designed their multi-CBDC interoperability frameworks. Because the true transformation won't come from one protocol or one use case. It will come from systemic alignment across governments, central banks, and the very agencies tasked with building social safety nets and financial access for billions. And at the center of that alignment are protocols that solve for speed, compliance, cost efficiency, interoperability across platforms. That's not optional. That's the baseline. And right now, there are only 2 digital assets that meet every one of those criteria and are already operational within this ecosystem. XRP and XLM. Not theoretical. Not experimental. Operational. This next phase isn't about testing anymore. It's about switching the system on. And the protocols that were built for this moment are already in place. If you've been watching closely, then you know exactly what happens next. Because this isn't just blockchain adoption. It's global economic infrastructure unification. The reset is real, and you're already in it. The United Nations has made it clear. The digital reset is happening. It's not coming, it's here. Corridors are live. Pilots are scaling. Institutional tools are routing value on-chain. And Ripple and Stellar aren't waiting for adoption. They're already inside the system. If you're still here, you're early. But not for long. Subscribe to Be Crypto Smart and stay ahead of the retail herd. Because by the time they see the reset, you will already be positioned inside it.